Hey, Freddy with CJ Off-Road. Here at CJ's, we're all about improving sound and performance, and our 2008 Jeep Wrangler definitely needs help in both areas. The factory exhaust is bone stock and it's leaking all over, so today we're going to be installing this Borla Header kit fitting your 2007 to 17 Jeep Wrangler. This Borla Long Tube Header kit comes with a pair of very nice mandrel band stainless steel headers that are CNC machined to perfectly fit your Jeep, as well as a 2.5-inch stainless steel catless Y pipe for off-road performance. It's going to give your Jeep a nice improvement in sound and performance, so today we're going to install it on our 2008 Jeep Wrangler. Tools you'll need for this installation: a lift and a pole jack or a jack and jack stands, 10mm socket, an extension, 3/8 ratchet, 15mm socket, 16mm socket, 18mm socket, a 1/2-inch ratchet, 18mm wrench, a 7/8 wrench or an O2 sensor wrench, a trim panel removal tool, an exhaust hanger removal tool, and if your job goes anything like ours did, you might need some patience. We're going to be installing these Borla Long Tube Headers along with the Borla Cat-Back exhaust to get the most out of it. So we're going to start off in the rear by taking off the axle back and then work our way to the front. So this nut's so corroded, it's actually supposed to be like a 15mm, but this 12 is just barely too small. So we're going to hammer this 12 on and hopefully it can grip onto the nut and we can break it free. Alright, well hopefully you don't have to do this. You probably won't have to, but we're going to take a cutoff wheel, we're going to cut right there, and that should break it free. Now we're going to remove the passenger side rubber hanger. You might need an exhaust hanger removal tool for this. These factory hangers can be pretty stiff. We're going to pop the driver's side hanger off, and then we should be able to wiggle the muffler off and pull it right off the over axle pipe. Same process as the passenger side. Alright, we got the factory muffler off. Now we're up front at this front pipe and we need to disconnect a clamp. However, it suffered the same fate that our muffler did and the nut is pretty much non-existent. So we're going to have to cut the clamp again right on the pipe, just like we did on the muffler. Now we're going to remove the rubber hanger on the front of the front pipe. And finally remove the hanger near the axle. Before you can drop the exhaust, you actually have to drop down this skid blade here. You don't have to completely remove it. You can just undo this bolt and then loosen the front two and let it hang down. But if you don't remove it, the exhaust just kind of hangs here and you can't get it out. So you definitely have to get this out of the way. Okay, with the skid plate down, now we're going to twist the exhaust to pull it off. And she's out. And this is why you had to drop the skid plate, because the exhaust needs to slide out right there. And now you can completely remove the pipe. All right, we have the factory Cat-Back completely removed. Now we're going to remove the rear and front skid plates. For the front skid plate, there's 3 18mm bolts, one here and then one on each side. And now we're going to remove the driver's side upper control arm from the frame. Your Jeep will probably be a little easier. I highly doubt yours will be as rusty as ours. That's it for down here for right now. Now we're going to go up top. Okay, so we're up top now. We're going to disconnect all the spark plug wires, but before we do that, we're going to disconnect the battery just to be safe. Now we're going to remove all 3 spark plug wires on each side of the engine. And the third one in the back is real hard to see, but it's back there. Got all 3 removed on the passenger side, now we'll do the same thing on the driver's side. Alright, before we remove the bolts on the header, we're going to disconnect the oxygen sensor connector. It's right here underneath the brake master cylinder. Just unplug it and get the wire out of the way. With the spark plug wires out of the way, grab yourself a 10mm socket, an extension, and a ratchet, and remove the header bolts. Before you try to remove these, it's highly recommended that you soak these in like PB Blaster or WD-40 for a significant amount of time. And then after you do that, you can break them loose. All right, There's the first one. Once you remove the 5th bolt on the exhaust manifold, there's one more fastener down here holding on the heat shield. If we remove this, it should give us more room to work with. Okay, we have the factory Y pipe completely disconnected from the exhaust manifold. Now I have to remove it, and you're probably going to notice that this is now installed on the Jeep. It's actually been a couple days since we last worked on it. We had some other things we needed to do, and we installed this trigger system on our Jeep, so this didn't just magically appear. We actually took a little break and installed this, but now we're going to resume on removing the manifold. We're on the final bolt on this passenger side manifold all the way on the back of the engine. Seems a bit easier to get it through this fender well area, so that's why we're not up top. And we got the final bolt. Okay, we have both manifolds off now. We're under the Jeep again. We're going to begin the process of removing the Y pipe. The first thing you need to do is disconnect this oxygen sensor on top of the transmission. Okay, we're going to cut the zip tie holding the wire on and then disconnect the connector right here. Be careful not to cut the wires when you cut the zip tie. The next thing we need to do to remove the Y pipe is disconnect this transmission cross member. There's a few bolts hanging it on, then that'll drop, and so will the Y pipe. For safety, we're going to support the transfer case with a pole jack while we remove the cross member. Don't need to lift up on it, just support it. Remove the 3 16mm nuts that secure the cross member to the transmission. Then remove these 2 16mm bolts. Then remove the 18mm bolts securing the cross member to the frame. Now this cross member should just drop down, but ours is pretty rusty, so I think we have to give it a couple taps with a hammer to break it loose. Okay, we are now ready to begin installing our new Borla system. We're finally back to working on the Jeep. We took a little bit of an intermission because we actually snapped 2 bolts on the headers. We needed to fix those, and we had some other projects to work on. So we're finally back to working on the Jeep, and we can now install our new Borla headers. But before we throw them in, we're actually going to wrap these in DEI header wrap to keep things nice and cool under the hood. This is our JK Wrangler DEI header wrap kit. This kit comes with 2 rolls of their titanium header wrap and 6 sleeves for the spark plug wires. The spark plug wire sleeves are actually the most important part of this. Pretty much if you don't run these, you will melt your spark plug wires, and it also comes with metal zip ties. Okay, we got both headers wrapped. Now we're going to transfer over the oxygen sensors. We were able to salvage the upstream sensors, but we weren't able to reuse the downstream sensors from the Y pipe. So when you transfer them over, make sure you get the one from the driver's side on the driver's side header. Same thing for the passenger side. You do not want to mix these up. And also you want to make sure that you get the downstream one and the upstream one not mixed up. We have a bit of anti-seize on here to make it easier to remove in the future. Then you can make it nice and tight. This header can now be installed. We're going to install this header with the supplied gasket that comes with the Borla kit, and we actually chose to get new header bolts because the old ones are really corroded. To get these headers in, you have to install them from the bottom. Then you're going to get it up and lay it across the cylinder head. While we're down here, we're going to place the passenger side header up there as well, and we'll go up to the top. With the header in place, we're now going to install our new header bolts. Alright, we have all the header bolts tightened on this side. Now we'll go do the same thing on the passenger side. Okay, now all the header bolts are tight. With the passenger side header installed, we're going to reinstall the factory oxygen sensor. We're going to pre-twist the sensor to make it easier to install and to make sure that we don't break it. Like I said earlier, we weren't able to reuse the factory downstream sensors, so now we're going to install our new sensors into the Y-pipe. Both sensors are in, this Y-pipe is now ready to be installed. Now lift up the Y-pipe, make sure you have a clamp on each side, and then slide it over the headers. Now we're going to reinstall all the hardware that secures this in place, starting with the 3 nuts that secure it to the transmission. We still have a few things to button up, but we're going to finish installing the exhaust by installing the front pipe onto the Y-pipe. Place another clamp on the resonator. Get the over axle pipe onto the resonator and then slide it into the rubber hanger. Finally, install the muffler. Get it into the driver's side hanger first. And finally, get it into the passenger side hanger. Tighten all the clamps with a 15mm socket. Reconnect all your oxygen sensors. Connect it on the passenger side as well. The last thing you want to do while you're down here is reinstall the skid plates. We're finished underneath the Jeep. Now we're going to reattach the spark plug wires and install our DEI sleeves. If you don't run these sleeves or any kind of protection on these wires, it is extremely likely that you will melt them. Do the same thing for all 6 spark plug wires. And now your spark plug wires are nice and protected. Reconnect the upstream oxygen sensor. Once you finish buttoning up the driver's side, you can go ahead and repeat the same process on the passenger side. Now that everything is complete, all we have to do now is reinstall this fender, and our installation is finished. Alright, we got our Borla headers in and our Jeep is breathing pretty good. I think the next step is to put a nice cold air intake on here. And you know, we ran into a lot of issues with this Jeep just because it was so rusty. But installation shouldn't take you more than a day. In our case, it took us quite a few days just because we had so many issues to work out. But I don't think those were normal issues. So this really shouldn't take you more than a whole day. And before you know it, you'll be heading off road.